the Hill 2023. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
Look, anytime we can talk about political party affiliation on the Dave and Dujanovic show, I just get so amped up over this kind of conversation with you, Dave. Dave is so strongly is rooted in his beliefs on this that it's really hard to convince him otherwise. But we do know that later today, it's very likely during the special session up on Utah's Capitol Hill, lawmakers will approve a new bill that will put a quick deadline on swapping party affiliations. Probably as soon as the governor signs the bill, which could be later today or tomorrow.
I'm super anti-party hopping. I have no problem if you change the way you feel. If you want to be a Republican, welcome to the team. We love you. If you want to go over to the Democratic side, that's great. I have no problem with what party you affiliate with. What I hate is game playing. So if you're really a Democrat, but you want to influence the Republican primary, which is not allowed by state law, only Republicans, registered Republicans, can vote in a Republican primary, then I hate the party hopping game.
The reason we're talking about this is because there is a special election on the horizon, and that is because, as we all know, if you're a regular part of the David Dujanovic Cast on His Radio family, you know the deal. If you're not, welcome to the fam. Representative Chris Stewart is giving up his congressional seat. He is resigning September 15th, and we need to fill that spot. And therefore, there will be a special election. Lawmakers have to get together on Capitol Hill. They have to change around the calendar to make sure that election, they're going to make sure it coincides with municipal elections. So we don't all have to be going to the polls at all different times this year. The primary will be likely September 5th, and then the general election will happen just before Thanksgiving. And as part of that, there's this part of the bill, part of this change will include party affiliation swapping. Ben Anderson from the Democratic Party, welcome to the show. I mean, you're like a regular guest. It's this twice in 1 week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The first thing Dave says in the morning when he comes in, he's like, can we talk to the Democratic Party today? Where can we fit them in this 3-hour window?
You're so good. I love talking to you because, I like to mix it up a little bit. But how do you feel? What are the Democrats feeling right now about this tight timeline that we expect as far as the when you can switch your party affiliation?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of voters across the state who are probably not very happy about it because, like you discussed, a lot of people do like to switch their party affiliation to vote in these primaries. A lot of people probably don't switch it back, to be honest with you, so it won't affect those people. But people who are, looking to switch it for this primary will probably realize too late that they can't. So I'm sure there are some people who are upset about that. I mean, as a party, we don't have a position on that. We don't necessarily advocate for that or against it. We just say, we're an open tent party, so we welcome voters of any registered political affiliation who align with our values.
I kind of have referred to it, not kind of, I super have referred to it as the shady shenanigans of party hopping, just so you can vote in this. Give me the justification of why you say, you know what, Democrats, go ahead and put your finger on the scale.
Well, I mean, I think that the argument that a lot of people make in favor of that is that, Republicans have a supermajority in the state. They, use their power to gerrymander our districts and make it harder for, people in places like Salt Lake County to have fair representation. So a lot of people say, well, then, they're going to play political games. We're going to switch it, party registration, and, vote in the primary for the candidate that we think would be best for the state, because a lot of voters feel like that's the only choice they have. Like I said, I don't know that I necessarily agree with the effectiveness of that strategy. I don't know how well it worked in 2020 in the governor's primary or last year in the Senate primary, but a lot of people do feel like that's the best way to have their voice heard.
I feel just in general, it's just hard to get people to change anyway. I mean, it's just hard. People don't like change. They have to go in, and maybe it sounds simple. They just fill out a form and they hit submit. And I don't know what else, we just had the Salt Lake County clerk on the line. Dave asked her the question, like, how do you swap parties? I just think people might say, yeah, I'll swap because I'm a Democrat at heart. But I want to be able to have some say in the Republican primary. But I don't know at the end of the day if they're actually doing that. And that is what Salt Lake County Clerk Lanny Chapman just spelled out. She said the data doesn't really bear out that this is like just an overwhelming effort to game the system.
Yeah, I don't think it's very widespread, honestly. I think there's a small group of people who are committed to doing it. And they, a lot of them just switched to Republican in 2020 and never switched back. But I don't think there's a large swath of the population that's doing this.
My concern, though, is it only takes one election for everyone to get motivated and come in mass and influence a Republican primary. Like, even though we haven't seen it, the possibility is clearly there. It just takes the right amount of motivation or organization for it to happen.
Yeah, that's true. And especially, if we see a primary with 5 or 6 candidates, the smallest amount can make a difference. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we've seen the legislature trying to restrict the timeline for when you can switch parties and shorten it. But like I said, a lot of people have already switched and they don't switch back. So ultimately, there's nothing you can really do about that. But I do think we are seeing the Republicans trying to, continue their efforts to stop people from switching into the Republican Party for that primary.
Ben Anderson, thank you for joining us from the Utah Democratic Party. My final thought, Deb, is I loosely understand with the party switchers what they're trying to do. They feel like, well, if we're not going to win the general election, then maybe we can get the best worst option in the primary. Here's my fear, though. Careful, when you tug on that tiger's tail, how are you going to feel when all of a sudden the Republicans decide to choose your Democratic candidate? Say you have a really great bipartisan, someone that has support Utah-wide, a Democratic candidate that you just love. And then all of a sudden the Republicans mobilize and get somebody far less appealing nominated from the Democratic Party instead of who you want. This is the scary part of the game. You don't want any manipulation. If you're a Democrat, be a Democrat. If you're a Republican, be a Republican. If you want to bounce back and forth, all of that's fine. Just don't try to game the system that's not working in good faith.
Utah lawmakers in special session this afternoon. You're going to keep it right here on KSL News Radio for Jeff Kaplan's afternoon news. He will have ongoing coverage about the session, of course, in large part due to Congressman Chris Stewart stepping down from his position back in Washington, D.C., special session to call for a special election. But there's another aspect to that special election vote that will happen today, and it has to do with party affiliation.
Yeah, typically, and I can't remember exactly how many days in advance, if you want to change your political party, so say you're a Democrat and you want to vote in the Republican primary, you have to say so, I don't know, I'll throw out a number, 3 months before the actual primary, because they don't want you to be changing at the last minute. The idea is, I don't want you manipulating, if you're a Democrat, I don't want you manipulating the Republican Party primary. That is a closed primary. It's supposed to be just Republicans choosing their favorite candidate.
But it looks like what will happen is that as soon as the governor signs this legislation regarding the special election, it will there will be no longer an opportunity for you to swap party affiliations. And earlier in the show, we talked to Salt Lake County Clerk. She's over elections in the county here, Salt Lake County, Lanny Chapman. And she told us the data does not reflect that there's signs of gamesmanship going on.
You do see a bit of a switch to a certain party, but then you're not, or the data's not there showing that people are switching back after they do switch parties. So it's not a switching game or hide the ball.
And I don't know if I totally agree with her analysis. She says it happens, and this is Salt Lake County specifically, and there's thousands of people that switch parties. She said what she doesn't notice is people switching back. So therefore, it shows that people aren't hopping back and forth. Well, the life hack, the governmental life hack is you switch once. That doesn't mean you can't vote in the Democratic primary if you want to. They have an open primary. Anyone can vote in the Democratic primary, but only registered Republicans can vote in the Republican primary. So really, there's no downside to being registered as a Republican. You can just vote in whatever primary you want. But that violates the spirit of the law.
Chair of the Utah Republican Party, Robert Axsom, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good. So is this unfair politics at play on Capitol Hill with lawmakers making it so people can't swap party affiliations once the governor signs this legislation? We assume that's going to happen.
Least.
Why not?
Yeah, no, I assume it's going to happen, and it's not nefarious or anything in the least for a couple of reasons. First off, state law already, as you guys explained, in a normal election year, so in an even year, requires that people affiliate in order to participate in closed primaries early enough that they can be a part of the process. And I believe that's in April of an even election year. So we have this little discrepancy in the law. We don't normally anticipate a partisan election in an odd year. It's only because of this vacancy that Congressman Stewart's retirement created that we have this. And so they're going to go about making sure to fix the law so that it reflects their will and what state law has been in a normal partisan election cycle. I would say also the second reason why it's appropriate for them to do this is at the end of the day, the Republican Party is a private organization. We have decided to have a closed primary. We invite any Utahn to affiliate as a Republican and be with us for years on end, engage with us, share your perspective and ideas. But if somebody wants to be a part of the election cycle, they need to be with us for the long haul, not just a quick switch in order to come and play games in our process. Be with us for years on end.
Part of the argument would be that if you're a Republican in Utah on the general election ballot, you're going to win. I mean, that's not far-fetched. So the belief from Democrats that I've talked to is the only chance I have to influence is to maybe get a better Republican candidate, knowing that they would probably win no matter what. As long as they have an R next to their name, they're probably going to win. So the idea is I'm coming over to influence so I have the best, worst option, in their opinion.
Yeah, I think that's short-sighted. Keep in mind, it wasn't until the 1970s that the Republican Party overcame the Democrat Party here in Utah. So there's a cyclical nature to elections and to partisan affiliation. I think that Democrats or other parties would benefit from articulating their beliefs. Right now, I believe that a lot of their priorities are out of touch with Utah's priorities and Utah's families' needs. And so if the short-sighted approach that they want to take is to come in and hide what they really believe and play in our process, I don't think that's to their long-term benefit or to the benefit of Utahns. I would prefer we all lay out our cards. Here's what we believe, and then let's have that debate of ideas, and I think it will improve all of us along the way.
Robert Axsom is chair of the Republican Party here in Utah. We're speaking to him because lawmakers are heading into special session this afternoon. As part of that special session, we anticipate that they are going to disallow party swapping, changing party affiliations after they pass that law and the governor signs it. So put this in perspective for me. I would imagine that the GOP feels that voters are a very important part of the election process.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. So why give voters only until COB today to make a party affiliation swap and not give them a few extra days or a warning that this was coming?
So excellent question. I'll answer both of those. First off, to the warning, like I mentioned before, state law already has this process clearly stated in a normal election year. And so I don't think it's a surprise that the legislature would want to create continuity between the law. As for how folks can participate, keep in mind that vacancy in Congress constitutionally requires elections. That means that every political party or any unaffiliated or person running as an independent has the opportunity ultimately to go through their narrowing process and end up on a general special election ballot. So Democrats will have a chance to vote for Democrats or Republicans. Republicans will have the chance to pick between a Democrat and a Republican and probably a Libertarian and so on and so forth. And so the Republican Party protecting its interests in determining who its nominee is in no way, shape, or form disenfranchising any Utahn, regardless of their political affiliation, from participating in this process.
Well, you make it sound as though the Republican Party is the only party on Capitol Hill. I mean, the Democrats, are certainly represented up there as well. And I'm not picking either side. It just seems to me like I want to actually be on the side of voters here and say, give them. Nobody was sitting around reading state code last week, Mr. Axum. We know that, right? Most people aren't. The people who are affiliated with this election, that are overseeing the election, yes, you have the ins and outs of it. But the guy who's, out working right now all week long, he's not reading code. Maybe he wants an opportunity to swap. I don't understand the rush to get this done today.
So a couple of things. First off, I would say that an average Utahn a week ago had no desire to be a Republican. If that were the case, why did they suddenly have a desire today? And what we're talking about in this party affiliation swap only affects those with a closed primary. The Republican Party has a closed primary. We need folks that want to be Republicans, not just for a hot minute or over the course of a week or right before an election. I invite anybody, conservative or moderate, come and be a part of the Republican Party and articulate your opinion on what our future should look like. But if that individual that you mentioned wasn't concerned about this last week, I think you should ask the question, why are they suddenly concerned now?
In fairness to that individual, that hypothetical individual, we just found out recently that Representative Chris Stewart was stepping down, right? I mean, we just found that out very recently. But thanks. It's always a great conversation with you. I appreciate it. Robert Axum, chair of the Republican Party, thanks so much for sticking with my questions there and giving your insights on that. I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. Final thought just for me, I think if you're a Republican, you're a Republican, or you're an independent or a Democrat, realizing right now that, I've got to make a decision now, and maybe it's too late. Okay, well, in the future, give it more thought. Make this change, not just when it's politically advantageous. Make it a long-term commitment.
Make it before COB today.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.